We arrive at the terminal station of our somatic audit for Part 7, the grand sterility illusion, the crowning psychological achievement of a consumer empire that has successfully weaponized the fear of the microscopic world to sever modern humanity from its own evolutionary bedrock. The corporate grid has achieved near absolute compliance by transforming the ordinary biosphere into an existential threat, demanding that you purchase chemical vouchers to validate your right to exist in a biological universe. We open this final gallery of corporate fabrications by stepping into the highly pathologized architecture of the public convenience to dismantle myth number 37, the total, unquestioning reliance on paper toilet seat covers as highly effective, impenetrable medical shields that completely insulate your flesh from catching deadly diseases and viral infections. Every single day, millions of hypervigilant citizens execute a delicate, high-anxiety ballet in public stalls, meticulously unfolding a tissue-thin ring of porous paper to establish a protective barrier against the unseen horrors of the porcelain rim. Let us look at this comforting ritual through the lens of basic microbiology. The human skin is a highly sophisticated, multi-layered evolutionary armor specifically engineered to block the cellular infiltration of environmental pathogens. Unless you possess open, actively bleeding wounds upon your thighs, bacteria and viruses cannot simply migrate across your intact dermal envelope. Furthermore, the cheap, highly porous cellulose tissue used to manufacture these covers possesses a microscopic pore size that is a veritable highway for fluids and microbes. The paper absorbs moisture instantly, drawing any underlying surface pathogens directly upward to your skin via capillary action. The corporate paper lobby has not provided you with a medical shield. They have sold you a transparent psychological pacifier designed to soothe your sociological panic while generating billions in commercial paper waste. This illusion of pristine sanitation grows significantly more sinister when we leave the public stall and immerse ourselves in the relaxing waters of the leisure industry, exposing the hidden biological hazards of myth number 38, the absolute commercial assurance that public hot tubs, commercial jacuzzis, and luxury resort spa baths are perfectly sanitized, pristine environments optimized for physical detoxification and cellular recovery. We slip into the bubbling, steaming waters of a commercial basin, inhaling the sharp, reassuring scent of chemical chlorine while believing our bodies are being purified of modern impurities. Let us look beneath the frothing surface at the chaotic thermodynamic reality of the public jacuzzi. A hot tub is a highly specialized biological incubator. The combination of elevated water temperatures, intense mechanical turbulence, and a dense, continuous influx of human organic matter, consisting of sweat, dead skin cells, cosmetic lotions, and trace bodily fluids, creates a highly hostile environment for chemical sanitizers. The heat causes chlorine and bromine to gas off and neutralize at a hyper-accelerated velocity, frequently rendering the water completely unprotected within minutes of a new bather's entry. This warm, turbulent, and organic matter-rich soup is the precise ecological niche favored by a highly resilient, opportunistic pathogen known as Pseudomonas aeruginosa. The churning jet's mechanics format these bacteria into an airborne mist, allowing you to inhale them deep into your lungs, while the high heat forces your skin pores open, inviting the bacteria to colonize your hair follicles. You are not detoxifying your cells. You are stewing in a highly concentrated, corporate perfumed bacterial culture that systematically induces severe skin rashes, agonizing ear infections, and debilitating respiratory conditions. The domestic execution of this thermal purification is equally ruinous to our outer defenses, leading us directly into the dermatological disasters of myth number 39, the deeply rationalized doctrine that washing your face or body with scorching hot water is the most hygienic, effective way to deeply melt away stubborn sebum, open your pores, and slaughter lingering surface bacteria. We stand before the shower stream or bathroom sink, turning the handle to maximum heat and enduring a painful, skin-reddening scold out of a submissive belief that cleanliness must be forged in fire. Let us subject this thermal violence to the hard architecture of human skin biology. The outer protective layer of your epidermis, known as the stratum corneum, relies entirely on a delicate, highly organized matrix of essential sebaceous lipids, ceramides, and fatty acids to construct a solid moisture barrier. This lipid bilayer is your body's primary defense against environmental pathogens and moisture loss. When you blast your skin with scorching hot water, you do not gently cleanse it. You function as an industrial degreaser. The extreme heat quite literally melts and dissolves this vital lipid shield, stripping away your natural protection and causing severe, microscopic tearing across the epidermal surface. Your body reacts to this sudden, catastrophic structural drying by initiating an aggressive, hyperreactive inflammatory response. The sebaceous glands receive an emergency signal that the barrier has been breached, causing them to pump out a massive, unregulated wave of thick oil to compensate, while the heat-damaged skin cells flake off and block the pores. You have successfully transformed a routine wash into a primary catalyst for severe acne, chronic rosacea, and permanent barrier degradation. This mechanical transmission of pathology reaches its peak of cosmetic hypocrisy when we examine the specialized wellness salon to destroy myth number 40. The absolute, cross-generational belief that commercial beauty salons thoroughly sterilize, disinfect, and purify all specialized whirlpool foot baths between every single pedicure customer. The modern consumer sits back in a plush leather chair, relaxing as their feet soak in a swirling basin of warm water, completely pacified by the brief, performative spray of disinfectant executed by the technician. Let us reveal the untouchable biological strongholds hidden behind the plastic shrouds of those pedicure tubs. A modern whirlpool footbath relies on a complex, subterranean network of internal pipes, pumps, and mesh filters to generate its soothing currents. During a standard pedicure, these hidden internal channels pull in gallons of water saturated with the previous client's sloughed dead skin cells, fungal spores, callus dust, and organic debris. This thick, protein-rich sludge settles permanently within the uncleanable internal pipework, creating an optimized, adhesive surface where bacteria construct a dense, impenetrable fortress known as a biofilm. Standard superficial liquid disinfectants poured into the basin between customers merely glide over the surface of this rubbery matrix, leaving the underlying pathogenic colonies completely untouched. When the jets are activated for your session, the mechanical force dislodges chunks of this bacterial biofilm, pumping thousands of microcolonies of dangerous Mycobacterium fortuitum directly into your warm water bath. These highly resilient organisms migrate through any microscopic nick or razor scratch on your legs, inducing deep, agonizing fungal ulcers and chronic bacterial infections that often require months of aggressive systemic antibiotic therapy to resolve. The corporate weaponization of our modern lifestyle expands into the very clothing we choose to wear throughout our active days, bringing us to the synthetic traps of myth number 41, the absolute sociological acceptance that wearing tight, restrictive synthetic athletic apparel all day is perfectly hygienic and healthy because it features advanced, trademarked moisture-wicking technology. We live our lives encased in tightly woven polyester, nylon, and elastane leggings and compression shirts, believing that these high-tech space-age fabrics are actively keeping our bodies pristine, dry, and clean during ordinary daily activities. In the cold light of human ecology, this attire represents a profound biological subversion. While synthetic fibers can mechanically push liquid water away from their surface, their tight, non-porous chemical structure completely traps volatile organic compounds, anaerobic sweat, sebum, and natural yeast secretions directly against your living skin for hours on end. By compressing these fluids against the warmth of your body, you convert your entire torso and groin into a high-humidity, oxygen-depleted industrial incubator. The natural, harmless fungal and bacterial populations of your skin are suddenly provided with a permanent tropical climate, triggering a hyper-accelerated population explosion. This synthetic confinement is the primary global cause of the modern epidemic of chronic tinea cruris, severe folliculitis, and systemic yeast overgrowths, proving that the athletic wear industry has successfully packaged a highly unhygienic, tight plastic microclimate as the ultimate symbol of a clean, health-conscious lifestyle. We reach the end of our dark journey through the modern bathroom cabinet to confront the ultimate ideological deception. Myth number 42. The total, defining historical illusion that modern humanity is vastly healthier, sturdier, and more resilient than any previous generation because we have successfully used industrial chemistry to sterilize our daily environment, slaughter the microbial world, and eliminate natural dirt from our existence. We look back at our ancestors with a sense of immense condescending pity, celebrating our pristine, chemical-scented survival. Let us look at the devastating, final balance sheet of this grand sterility illusion. In our obsessive, corporate-driven war against the microscopic world, we have broken the fundamental evolutionary contract that has sustained human life for millions of years. By dousing our skin in harsh detergents, blocking our sweat glands with heavy metals, stripping our scalps with industrial sulfates, and sanitizing our homes into a biological void, we have not achieved superior health. We have merely traded easily treatable, acute environmental dirt for a permanent global epidemic of lifelong autoimmune diseases, chronic metabolic disorders, severe depression, and hyperreactive inflammatory conditions. Our immune systems, left utterly bankrupt of environmental training and missing their ancient microbial partners, have begun to malfunction, turning inward to violently assault our own tissues in a desperate search for an enemy that no longer exists. Meanwhile, our aggressive over-medication of the environment has systematically bred a terrifying new generation of highly mutated, completely drug-resistant superbugs that loom over our fragile, sterile civilization. The multi-billion-dollar hygiene industry did not save your life. They systematically traded your actual biological immunity for short-term corporate quarterly profits, leaving modern humanity structurally fragile, chemically dependent, and completely exposed within a sparkling, synthetic, and thoroughly toxic illusion of cleanliness. We step once more into the deceptive light of the cinematic projector for Part 2, the sci-fi disruption, an unsparing anatomical dissection of the mechanical and acoustic impossibilities sold to us by generations of science fiction screenwriters. The entertainment conglomerates have successfully conditioned us to project our cozy, terrestrial experiences onto a vast and alien void, populating the cosmic desert with terrestrial physics that have absolutely no place in reality. We begin this structural dismantling by turning down the volume on the acoustic exaggerations of myth number 7, the absolute theatrical rule that massive space battles, detonating starships, and cataclysmic planetary collisions are accompanied by roaring explosions, screeching laser beams, and the thundering, low-frequency rumble of massive rocket engines. We have all sat in crowded theaters, our seats vibrating to the manufactured bass of a dying mothership. Let us consult the fundamental rules of classical wave mechanics. Sound is nothing more than a mechanical wave, a cascade of kinetic energy that requires a physical medium, a dense matrix of air molecules, liquid water, or solid stone, to vibrate and transmit its signal from one point to another. Space is a vacuum defined by absolute, unyielding emptiness, possessing a particle density so microscopic that it is functionally non-existent. Without air molecules to compress and expand, sound waves cannot form, let alone travel. If an entire solar system were to rip itself apart right next to your spaceship, the entire apocalyptic event would unfold in absolute, eerie, and terrifying silence. The lasers would flash, the metal would tear, and the reactors would rupture without producing a single decibel of noise, a silent cosmic ballet of total destruction that completely strips Hollywood of its thunder. This mechanical misdirection expands from the soundtrack directly into the gravitational architecture of our upper atmosphere, leading us straight into the orbital deceptions of myth number 8, the universal assumption that astronauts floating effortlessly inside the International Space Station experience weightlessness because they are completely outside of Earth's gravitational field. We watch the video feeds of smiling scientists chasing floating drops of water and drifting through metal corridors, concluding that they have successfully escaped the heavy anchor of our planet. Let us look at the cold, hard mathematics of orbital mechanics. At the altitude where the space station orbits, roughly 250 miles above our heads, the gravitational pull of the Earth is not zero. It is still operating at approximately 90% of its sea level strength. The astronauts have not escaped gravity in the slightest. The true reason they float is vastly more terrifying. They are in a perpetual, unceasing state of free fall. The space station and everything inside it are falling directly toward the center of the Earth under the crushing influence of gravity, but they are also moving sideways at a hyper-accelerated velocity of 17,500 miles per hour. As they drop downward, the surface of the Earth curves away beneath them at the exact same rate. They are quite literally falling around the planet, missing it continuously, trapped inside a permanent, high-velocity loop of gravity-driven freefall that mimics weightlessness while proving that you can never truly escape the gravitational grip of the world beneath your feet. The corporate manufacturing of cosmic optimism grows even more detached from reality when we turn our telescopes toward our rusted neighbor to expose the atmospheric lies of myth number 9. The highly publicized, corporate-backed prophecy that Mars is a warm, dry, sandy red desert just waiting to be transformed into humanity's next real estate frontier by pioneers wearing basic protective suits. We are treated to sleek architectural renderings of dome cities and rugged astronauts exploring picturesque crimson dunes. Let us subject these colonization dreams to a cold review of Martian ecology. Mars is not a slightly colder version of Arizona. It is a hyper-toxic, heavily irradiated and frozen wasteland. The Martian atmosphere is a thin, suffocating wisp composed of 95% carbon dioxide, possessing a surface pressure so low, less than 1% of Earth's, that if you stepped onto the red sands without a fully pressurized, heavy-duty spacesuit, the liquid water on your tongue and inside your tissues would instantly boil away due to the lack of ambient pressure. Furthermore, without a thick atmospheric shield or a planetary magnetic field, the surface of Mars is continuously blasted by a lethal cocktail of solar and cosmic radiation, while global temperatures regularly plunge to a bone-chilling -80 degrees Fahrenheit. The soil itself is heavily saturated with toxic perchlorates, hazardous chemical salts that would permanently destroy human thyroid function upon contact. The red planet is not a blank canvas for human manifest destiny. It is a hostile biological dead zone engineered to extinguish terrestrial life within seconds. This sensory confusion deepens when we look at our nearest celestial neighbor, correcting the geometric misunderstandings of myth number 10, the deeply internalized cultural belief that the dark side of the moon is permanently cloaked in absolute pitch-black darkness, a frozen zone of eternal shadow that never receives a single ray of sunlight. We write songs about it, treat it as a symbol for the unknown, and imagine it as a permanent cosmic abyss. Let us reintroduce basic orbital geometry. The moon is tidally locked to the Earth, meaning its rotation on its own axis has been synchronized by gravity to match its orbit around our planet, forcing the same side to face us at all times. This means there is indeed a far side of the moon that we can never see from Earth, but it is completely separate from the concept of darkness. The moon has its own day-night cycle that lasts roughly 29 Earth days. As the moon orbits our world, the far side moves directly into the full glare of the sun during the new moon phase, receiving just as much total solar radiation and blinding light over the course of a month as the side that faces our telescopes. The dark side of the Moon is not physically dark. It is merely dark to human eyes, a geometric optical illusion that proves that our perspective is not the center of cosmic reality. The thermodynamic rules of the void are equally misunderstood by our terrestrial intuition, bringing us to the chilling miscalculations of myth number 11, the total acceptance that space is cold because it is inherently filled with a freezing, sub-zero cosmic air that actively sucks the heat out of your body like a winter blizzard. We imagine an unprotected astronaut freezing solid into an ice cube within a fraction of a second. Let us examine the actual physics of heat transfer in a vacuum. Heat cannot simply wander away on its own. It requires a physical mechanism to move. On Earth, we lose heat primarily through conduction and convection, where moving air or water molecules hit our skin and physically carry the thermal energy away. Because space is an empty vacuum containing virtually no particles to bump into, conduction and convection are completely impossible. The only way to lose heat in space is through thermal radiation, which is an incredibly slow, highly inefficient process. Far from freezing to death instantly, an astronaut's primary physical crisis inside a spacesuit or a starship is actually catastrophic overheating. Your body is constantly generating metabolic heat, and your electronic equipment is pumping out thermal energy with absolutely no air molecules around to absorb it. Without highly sophisticated, active liquid cooling systems running through their suits to pump the thermal energy out, an astronaut would bake alive in their own body heat within minutes, turning our icy fears completely inside out. Finally, we decode the optical illusions of interplanetary debris by unmasking the combustion errors of myth number 12, the widespread assumption that comets fly through the night sky trailing a bright, glowing tail of fire because they are burning up due to intense atmospheric friction. We watch these majestic streaks across the stars and automatically compare them to shooting stars or falling meteorites. In the real laboratory of solar wind dynamics, a comet's tail has absolutely nothing to do with fire or friction. A comet is a dirty, frozen snowball composed of ancient water ice, frozen gases, and rock dust drifting through the vacuum of space. As its orbit brings it closer to the Sun, it does not burn. It undergoes sublimation, where the intense solar radiation causes the frozen gases and ice to transition directly from a solid into a vaporized gas without ever becoming a liquid. This released gas and dust form a cold, glowing envelope around the comet. The spectacular tail you see stretching across millions of miles is not a trailing exhaust pipe. It is a stream of particles being physically pushed directly away from the Sun by the intense pressure of the solar wind and radiation, meaning that as a comet moves away from the Sun, it actually flies backward, trailing its beautiful tail directly ahead of its path, a chilling proof that the cosmic wind blows entirely independent of our terrestrial expectations. We turn our astronomical focus to the profound geometric distortions of the classroom for Part 3. The scale illusion, a cold assessment of how the human brain struggles to comprehend the sheer, terrifying emptiness of the cosmos. Our educational institutions have spent generations shrinking the universe into tidy, color-coded illustrations just to fit it into a child's backpack. We begin this deep audit by tearing up the graphic lies of myth number 13, the universal, schoolhouse belief that standard solar system diagrams printed in textbooks provide an accurate, proportional representation of the relative sizes and physical distances of the planets. You remember the classic chart, a giant yellow sun on the left edge, followed by Mercury, Venus, Earth, and Mars sitting closely together like marbles on a billiard table. Let us expose the severe cartographic deception of these illustrations. To draw both the physical dimensions of a planet and the distance between them on a single sheet of paper is a mathematical impossibility. If a graphic designer were to accurately scale the Earth to the size of a tiny 1-inch marble, the giant sun would be over 9 feet wide, and the relative distance to the next planet, Mars, would require you to lay down more than a city block of physical paper. To include Neptune on that same chart, the paper would have to stretch for miles. The corporate textbook industry created a hyper-compressed optical illusion solely for printing convenience, training generations of citizens to view the solar system as a cozy, crowded neighborhood rather than what it truly is, a staggering expanse of absolute dead void where the tiny specks of matter are practically lost in infinity. This misdirection of our celestial observation brings us directly to the star charts to correct the luminous exaggerations of myth number 14, the widespread, cross-generational cultural doctrine that the North Star, known officially as Polaris, is the brightest, most brilliant, and most magnificent star burning in the entire night sky. Since antiquity, travelers and maritime sailors have spoken of Polaris with deep reverence, leading the modern consumer to scan the night sky for the most blinding point of light and assume they are looking at the North Pole. Let us consult the rigorous ledgers of photometric stellar magnitudes. In the true ranking of night sky brilliance, Polaris is a mediocre performer, ranking as a humble 48th in order of brightness. The title of absolute undisputed king of night sky brilliance belongs to Sirius, the dog star, which blazes with an intensity that completely dwarfs Polaris. The North Star is not famous because it is bright. It is famous solely due to a temporary cosmic coincidence. By pure geometric happenstance, the northern rotational axis of the Earth happens to point almost directly at Polaris's position in space. As our planet spins like a top through the night, every other star appears to trace a massive circular path across the sky, while Polaris appears to sit perfectly stationary, a fixed anchor for navigation that has absolutely nothing to do with optical brilliance and everything to do with our planet's slanted orientation. The true scope of our visual limitations deepens when we step out on a clear night to dismantle the cosmic assumptions of myth number 15, the romantic, comforting belief that all the individual stars visible to your naked eye on a crisp summer night are scattered evenly across the entire depth and breadth of the observable universe. We look up at the velvet canopy, see thousands of twinkling diamond pinpricks, and imagine our eyes are piercing through the deep core of the cosmos, looking at the very edge of creation. Let us introduce the harsh boundaries of human optical physics. Every single individual star you can spot in the night sky without a multi-million-dollar telescope is part of our immediate, localized stellar backyard. Your eyes are completely confined to a tiny microscopic bubble within a single spiral arm of our own Milky Way galaxy, extending only a few hundred or a few thousand light-years out. The vast, unfathomable universe beyond this local bubble, containing hundreds of billions of other massive galaxies, each packed with trillions of their own stars, appears to your naked eyes as absolutely nothing but dead, black, empty space. You are not looking at the universe. You are looking at your own tiny neighborhood street, completely blind to the global metropolis stretching out across the cosmic horizon. The material composition of this vast emptiness is equally weaponized against our intuition, leading us straight into the molecular realities of myth number 16. The total acceptance that space is a perfect, pristine, and completely sterile vacuum with absolutely zero matter floating between solar systems. We think of the interstellar void as a clean, clinical nothingness. In the real laboratory of modern radio astronomy, interstellar space is not empty. It is thick with a drifting, ghostly smog known as the interstellar medium. This cosmic mist is packed with massive clouds of drifting hydrogen gas, microscopic silicate dust, and highly complex chemical structures called polycyclic aromatic hydrocarbons, the scorched carbon remnants of ancient dying stars. When the violent shockwaves of supernovas blast these microscopic dust clouds with extreme radiation, they synthesize complex chemical compounds that drift through the void. Astronauts returning to their spacecraft after spacewalks have repeatedly reported that their suits retain a distinct, pungent aroma. Space does not smell like a sterile clinical room. It possesses a very real, chemical scent that mirrors the sharp odor of burnt steak, hot welding fumes, and acrid industrial metal. A dirty molecular cocktail proving that the vacuum is a sprawling graveyard of dead stellar matter. This chaotic movement of cosmic debris applies to larger bodies as well, bringing us to the terrifying planetary migrations of myth number 17, the comforting, stable doctrine that rogue planets always stay locked in permanent, obedient orbits around their parent stars until those stars eventually grow old and die. We view solar systems as permanent, clockwork mechanisms where planets are safely tethered to their life-giving suns forever. Let us review the violent physics of gravitational ejection. During the chaotic early formation of a planetary system, giant gas worlds engage in a brutal game of orbital billiards. The immense gravitational fields of massive planets frequently cross paths, slinging smaller, rocky worlds completely out of the system at extreme velocities. These unfortunate worlds are violently torn away from their suns and cast out into the dark, transformed into orphan rogue planets. Billions of these dark worlds are actively drifting, completely blind and untethered, through the freezing void of deep space, moving through the galaxy without a sun, their surfaces frozen solid into a permanent cryogenic tomb, proving that the architecture of the universe is not a peaceful sanctuary, but a volatile cosmic lottery where planets can be permanently exiled into the dark. Finally, we decode the cinematic theatre of SETI by unmasking the acoustic fallacies of myth number 18. The widespread belief that radio telescopes hunt for alien intelligence by listening for continuous, clean, and melodious musical frequencies broadcast smoothly from deep space. We have all watched the Hollywood movies where the lonely scientist sits in a high-tech control room wearing headphones, suddenly smiling as a clear, rhythmic melody or a clean, pulsing tone chimes through the static. Let us step into the actual listening posts of modern astrobiology. Space is not a quiet library waiting for a phone call. It is a deafening, chaotic roar of electromagnetic violence. The cosmos is filled with the raw static of cosmic microwave background radiation left over from the Big Bang, the rhythmic, high-powered clicking of spinning pulsars, and the violent radio hiss of stellar flares and black hole accretion disks. Tracking an artificial signal from an alien civilization does not involve listening for a pretty tune. It involves running massive, complex algorithms to isolate a microscopic, statistically anomalous drop in raw white noise. It is a grueling mathematical search for a single abnormal pixel within a blinding storm of cosmic static, a silent data processing marathon that completely strips the alien hunt of its romantic musical soundtrack. We step across the threshold of human perception and enter the grand chronometric theatre of the universe for Part 4, the temporal mirage, a sobering audit of how the finite velocity of light and the crushing mechanics of gravity manipulate our sense of time and reality. The human brain is hardwired to trust its eyes, assuming that what we see before us is an accurate ledger of the immediate present. We begin our deconstruction of these cosmic illusions by shattering the temporal complacency of myth number 19, the deeply comforting assumption that when you step outside and look up at the twinkling tapestry of the night sky, you are viewing the stars exactly as they exist at this very modern moment in time. We look at a distant beacon of light, imagining it burning brightly across the void. Let us subject this optical confidence to the strict constants of special relativity. Light is the fastest entity in the cosmos, but it is not instantaneous. It is bound to a strict speed limit of roughly 186,000 miles per second. Because the interstellar distances separating us from the stars are so unfathomably, staggeringly vast, the night sky you are looking at is not a real-time portrait, but a sprawling graveyard of illusions. The light hitting your retina tonight from a nearby star left its source decades ago. The light from a distant star cluster began its journey when mammoths still roamed the Earth. Many of the most magnificent stars you admire with your naked eye have already exhausted their nuclear fuel, collapsed, and ceased to exist millions of years ago. Their physical structures long since disintegrated, while their ghostly, ancient light continues to travel through the void. A cosmic time delay proving that the night sky is merely a beautifully projected history book of the dead. This fatalistic trajectory shifts smoothly from ancient stellar ghosts to the ultimate fate of our own planetary anchor, dismantling the apocalyptic miscalculations of myth number 20, the spectacular commercial prophecy that our sun will eventually run out of fuel, expand into a monster, and collapse into a ravenous black hole that will violently devour the remaining inner planets of the solar system. Hollywood disaster epics love to paint the demise of our star as a violent gravitational implosion into a bottomless cosmic sinkhole. Let us review the unyielding laws of stellar mass thresholds. A star's ultimate evolutionary destination is dictated entirely by one factor: its birth weight. To trigger a core collapse violent enough to crush atomic structures into an infinitely dense singularity, a dying star must possess a critical mass at least 8 to 20 times greater than that of our Sun. Our star is a remarkably mediocre, low-mass yellow dwarf. It simply lacks the gravitational muscle required to pierce the fabric of space-time. When the Sun exhausts its core hydrogen fuel supply, roughly 5 billion years from now, it will not implode into a black hole. Instead, it will undergo a slow, bloated expansion into a red giant, swallowing Mercury and Venus and boiling the Earth's oceans before gently shedding its outer atmospheric layers into a colorful planetary nebula, leaving behind a cold, quiet, and slowly fading core of carbon and oxygen known as a white dwarf, a whimpering atomic ember that will sit in the dark for trillions of years, proving that the end of our world will not be a violent gravitational feast, but a slow, freezing fade into irrelevance. The true structural horror of gravitational collapse is far more twisted than instantaneous destruction, leading us straight into the terrifying anatomical distortions of myth number 21, the cinematic doctrine that falling into a black hole is a quick, instantaneous death where your body is instantly crushed into nothingness the moment you cross the threshold of the event horizon. Science fiction heroes drop into the dark and disappear in a flash of dramatic lightning. Let us analyze the dual realities dictated by gravitational time dilation and extreme tidal forces. If you were to plunge legs first toward a stellar mass black hole, you would experience a process physicists call spaghettification. Because gravity intensifies exponentially over microscopic distances near the singularity, the gravitational pull on your feet would be thousands of times stronger than the pull on your head. Long before you ever reach the actual event horizon, these unequal tidal forces would violently stretch your physical body, elongating your muscles, bones, and individual atoms into a long, thin ribbon of human plasma, like a noodle being pulled from a plate. But the temporal nightmare is worse for those watching from safety. Due to the extreme warping of space-time, an outside observer watching your descent through a telescope would never actually see you cross the edge. To them, your clock would slow down to an absolute crawl. They would see your stretched, frozen image hovering at the boundary of the event horizon for eternity, fading to a dark red as your light redshifted into nothingness, transforming your death into a permanent, frozen monument in time, while your actual consciousness was ripped apart inside the dark. This manipulation of our visual expectations expands directly into the pristine galleries of space photography, pulling back the public relations veneer of myth number 22. The total acceptance that advanced space telescopes like the Hubble or the James Webb capture those vibrant, colorful, and majestic nebulae exactly as they would look to the naked human eye if you were standing right next to them in a starship. We buy posters of glowing violet galaxies and green cosmic clouds, assuming the universe is a psychedelic light show. let us expose the digital darkroom of modern astrophotography. The raw, unfiltered data beamed back to Earth from these multi-billion-dollar space observatories consists of completely flat, black and white digital exposures. These advanced cameras do not look at colors, they look at light intensity through specialized, narrow-band filters designed to isolate specific chemical elements. To make this data understandable to scientists and visually stunning for public consumption, NASA image processors must artificially assign colors to these grayscale layers. They map specific invisible gases to the human visual spectrum, assigning red to sulfur, green to hydrogen, and blue to oxygen. The breathtaking cosmic artwork you see online is an artificial translation, a calculated chemical map designed for data analysis and public relations, proving that if you were to fly your starship directly into the heart of the pillars of creation, your human eyes would see nothing but a dark, foggy, and thoroughly disappointing cloud of grey interstellar dust. The physical reality of surviving within that dust is equally unromanticized by engineering, bringing us to the exhausting structural truths of myth number 23. The widespread assumption that modern spacesuits are light, highly flexible, and cozy garments engineered primarily to keep an astronaut perfectly comfortable and cozy during long, peaceful walks outside the spacecraft. We watch astronauts waving smoothly at the camera, imagining the suit is just an advanced winter coat or a heavy diving outfit. In the harsh reality of aerospace engineering, an extravehicular mobility unit is not clothing. It is a rigid, multi-layered, and individual human spacecraft. The interior of the suit must be heavily pressurized with pure oxygen to keep the astronaut's blood from boiling in the vacuum. The moment you pressurize a flexible fabric suit against a complete vacuum, it inflates and hardens like a high-pressure truck tire, becoming incredibly stiff and completely resistant to human movement. To bend an elbow, close a hand, or move a leg, an astronaut must exert massive physical force to fight against the internal air pressure of their own garment with every single motion. A standard spacewalk is an agonizing, grueling marathon of raw physical endurance. After hours of fighting the rigid joints of their pressurized prison, astronauts routinely return to the airlock with severe muscle fatigue, agonizing chafing wounds, and fingernails that have been completely torn from their beds by the constant internal friction of their gloves, transforming a peaceful stroll into a punishing athletic ordeal. Finally, we decode the chaotic ballistic mechanics of low Earth orbit to expose the lethal realities of myth number 24, the comforting belief that space junk is just a harmless, slow-moving cloud of small, drifting trash that floats peacefully and cleanly in Earth's upper atmosphere, poses no real threat to our civilization and will eventually burn up on its own. We picture a few loose bolts and dead batteries drifting lazily like seaweed in an ocean current. Let us apply basic kinetic energy equations to orbital logistics. Objects trapped in low Earth orbit do not float. They must travel at a hyper-accelerated velocity of 17,500 miles per hour just to counteract the gravitational pull of the planet and stay in orbit. At these catastrophic speeds, the standard laws of terrestrial collision are completely rewritten. A microscopic fleck of dried paint or a stray metal washer traveling at 17,500 miles per hour does not scratch a hull. It impacts with the devastating, explosive kinetic energy of a high-powered military artillery shell. A single collision with a discarded rocket stage can instantly shatter a multi-million-dollar weather satellite into tens of thousands of new, jagged projectiles. This creates the looming threat of a Kessler syndrome, a catastrophic chain reaction where expanding clouds of hypervelocity space shrapnel collide with other satellites, wrapping the entire planet in an inescapable, lethal grid of zooming metal debris that could permanently destroy our global communications network and lock humanity beneath a cloud of our own garbage, rendering space travel entirely impossible for generations to come. We step forward into the celestial gallery for Part 5, the planetary illusion, where we confront the deep, multi-layered deceptions surrounding the celestial bodies spinning inside our immediate solar neighborhood. For over a century, popular literature and illustrated pulp magazines have romanticized the planets, transforming harsh, non-human landscapes into playground settings for pulp adventure. We begin our somatic and physics-based audit by puncturing the heroic, radioactive fantasies of myth number 25, the childish comic book belief that exposure to cosmic radiation in deep space acts as a grand evolutionary catalyst, triggering wild genetic mutations that unlock superior physical traits or miraculous biological adaptations. The entertainment industry has spent decades painting radiation as a magical serum, rather than an unmitigated engine of cellular destruction. Let us look through a real electron microscope at the absolute biological horror of galactic cosmic rays. Deep space is continuously saturated with highly energetic, heavy iron ions traveling at near relativistic velocities. These subatomic particles do not rewrite your genetic code for the better. They behave like a dense, microscopic barrage of lead bullets tearing through your tissues. As these atomic projectiles slice through your body, they cleanly shred the delicate double helix strands of your cellular DNA, creating a catastrophic wasteland of fragmented genetic material that your body cannot repair. The result is not an evolutionary leap forward, but rapid, agonizing cellular necrosis, a total collapse of the central nervous system, terminal radiation sickness, and a dramatic, mathematical certainty of aggressive, incurable cancers, proving that the stars offer no genetic upgrades, only a cold, silent biological execution. This radioactive paranoia expands from deep space directly into our own orbital frontier, bringing us to the conspiratorial delusions of myth number 26, the absolute internet doctrine that the Van Allen radiation belts surrounding our planet form a completely impassable, lethal barrier that renders human travel to the Moon, Mars, or any deep space destination a physical and engineering impossibility. Self-taught theorists love to assert that the radioactive ions trapped within Earth's magnetic shield will instantly fry any meat-based container attempting to cross them. Let us review the elegant geometry of trajectory ballistics and orbital mechanics. The Van Allen belts are not a uniform, solid wall of atomic fire. They are shaped like two giant, hollow donuts wrapping around our planet's equator, leaving massive, relatively clear openings over the polar regions. When NASA engineers plotted the paths for the historic Apollo lunar missions, they did not fly directly through the dense, highly concentrated radioactive cores of these zones. Instead, they launched the spacecraft at extreme, hypervelocity speeds through the thin outer margins of the belts, spending less than a few hours total within the radiation zone. The astronauts did not absorb a lethal dose of cosmic energy. They received a minor, statistically insignificant exposure equivalent to a standard, routine medical chest X-ray, demonstrating that a solid understanding of vector geometry can easily bypass the most terrifying environmental blockades the cosmos can throw our way. The mechanical reality of gravity is equally weaponized against our common sense, leading us straight into the lunar illusions of myth number 27. The total cultural consensus that the Moon possesses absolutely zero gravity, which is why the historic Apollo astronauts appeared to be floating and drifting effortlessly across the lunar landscape during those grainy mid-century television broadcasts. We watched the video archives of men hopping across the grey dust like balloons, concluding that they had stepped entirely out of the gravitational grip of mass attraction. Let us restore basic Newtonian physics to the lunar surface. The Moon is a massive planetary body possessing a physical mass that exerts a very real, unceasing gravitational pull, operating at exactly 1/6 the strength of Earth's gravity. The reason the astronauts engaged in those awkward, bouncing, kangaroo-like hops was not because gravity was missing. It was because they were fighting against the rigid, high-pressure design of their own suits. Encased in heavy, multi-layered garments that were inflated like rigid truck tires To protect them from the vacuum, the men could not naturally bend their knees, hips, or ankles. To move forward, they were forced to utilize their entire body weight to launch themselves upward, working with the lower gravity to overcome the mechanical resistance of their pressurized suits, turning a grueling fight against stiff engineering into an optical illusion of effortless weightlessness. The structural stability of our own world is subjected to similar pseudo-scientific anxieties, bringing us to the planetary panics of myth number 28, the stubborn, apocalyptic doctrine that rare planetary alignments and significant cosmic conjunctions can exert a massive gravitational pull on Earth's delicate tectonic plates, triggering devastating global earthquakes and catastrophic volcanic eruptions. You see a headline warning that Mars, Jupiter, and Saturn are aligning in a straight line, and your primal brain automatically braces for geological ruin. Let us subject these alignment fears to the cold equations of gravitational scale. Gravity operates strictly in accordance with the inverse square law, meaning distance degrades its power far faster than mass can amplify it. When you calculate the combined total gravitational tug exerted on the Earth by every single planet in our solar system, combined during a perfect alignment, the entire force is so microscopically minuscule that it is completely eclipsed by the daily, routine gravitational pull of our single nearby moon. The moon pulls on our oceans and crust with an intensity hundreds of thousands of times greater than the combined weight of all the distant gas giants. The alignments of our neighboring planets are beautiful optical events for amateur astronomers, but to the deep, heavy magma chambers of Earth's geology, they are completely irrelevant, a cosmic whisper that cannot cause a single pebble to slip on a hillside. This visual bias turns into an outright astronomical error when we examine the aesthetic wonders of the outer solar system, dismantling the ring-based exclusivity of myth number 29, the absolute schoolhouse certainty that Saturn is the only unique, magnificent planet in our system that possesses a beautiful, massive ring structure composed of orbiting ice and rock. We look at the classic models of the solar system, admire Saturn's sweeping golden disks, and assume the other planets are completely naked spheres. Let us correct the visual balance sheet of modern planetary observation. Saturn is not unique, it is merely flashy. Every single gas and ice giant in our solar system, Jupiter, Uranus, and Neptune, possesses its own complex, intricate system of planetary rings. The reason Saturn dominates our textbooks is purely a matter of chemical composition. Its rings are composed of highly reflective water ice that bounces sunlight directly into our optical telescopes. The ring systems of Jupiter, Uranus, and Neptune are composed of dark, carbon-rich space dust, pulverized organic compounds, and microparticles of dead moons that possess a reflectivity lower than charcoal. They are completely invisible to standard optical instruments, requiring advanced infrared sensors and deep space probes to detect. Saturn is merely the loudest extrovert in a family of ringed giants, proving that what is invisible to your eyes is not non-existent in the architecture of space. Finally, we explode the ultimate soft landing fantasy of the outer planets by unmasking the crushing atmospheric horrors of myth number 30, the widespread, comfortable belief that gas giants like Jupiter and Saturn are purely soft, fluffy, and hollow clouds of vaporized gas, meaning a sufficiently shielded spaceship could fly directly through the center of the planet and emerge perfectly intact out the opposite side. We hear the word gas, and our minds automatically picture a harmless cloud of smoke or a foggy autumn morning. Let us take a terrifying, fatalistic plunge into the crushing depths of Jovian fluid dynamics. As you descend past the outer cloud tops of Jupiter, the ambient atmospheric pressure does not remain a gentle mist. It accelerates at a catastrophic rate. The weight of the immense atmosphere pressing down from above generates forces that quickly exceed millions of times the atmospheric pressure of Earth. Long before a spaceship could even approach the core, the intense pressure forces the hydrogen gas to undergo a bizarre phase transition, compressing it into a vast, superheated, and swirling ocean of liquid metallic hydrogen. This is not a soft cloud. It is a dense, highly conductive electronic soup operating at temperatures hotter than the surface of the sun. Any synthetic alloy, titanium hull, or human engineering marvel ever conceived by our civilization would be instantly flattened, crushed, and molecularly dissolved into a microscopic puddle of metallic sediment within seconds of entry, transforming your sci-fi journey through a fluffy cloud into a crushing descent into an inescapable planetary hydraulic press. We ascend into the absolute zenith of human misconceptions for Part 6, the cosmological deception, a secular audit of the grandest architectural illusions surrounding the birth, expansion, and volatile behavior of the universe itself. The modern citizen has been coddled by a lifetime of neat cosmic narratives that reduce the infinite, mind-bending canvas of space-time into something resembling a friendly neighborhood planetarium. We begin this final deconstruction by shattering the foundational cinematic explosion of myth number 31, the absolute, unwavering cultural dogma that the Big Bang was a spectacular, cinematic detonation of fire, smoke, and matter that burst forth from a single, isolated central point out into a pre-existing, empty black void. We have all seen the educational animations featuring a tiny, glowing pixel that suddenly detonates like a stick of cosmic dynamite, scattering infant galaxies into a dark room. Let us introduce real Einsteinian field equations to the graphic designers. The Big Bang was not an explosion of matter in space. It was the rapid, cataclysmic expansion of space itself, everywhere simultaneously. Before that initial inflation, the concept of a geographical location or an empty void did not exist, because space itself had not yet been woven. The singularity did not occupy a point within a room. The singularity was the entire universe compressed into a single state. When the expansion phase initiated, it did not push matter outward into a desert. It caused every single point in the universe to stretch away from every other point at once. There is no epicenter to the cosmos, no hollow crater where the creation event took place, and no cosmic ground zero you could ever navigate a starship toward. A reality that renders the search for a universe center completely nonsensical. This geometric distortion leads us directly to the boundaries of the cosmos to dismantle the external illusions of myth number 32, the total cultural acceptance that our universe is actively expanding outward into an endless, empty black room or a cold outer dimension that currently exists just beyond its outer borders. We picture the cosmos as an expanding balloon inflating inside a dark bedroom, assuming that if we could only travel fast enough to reach the edge, we could poke a hole through the physical wall and look at the external matrix containing our universe. Let us review the strict parameters of self-contained space-time geometry. The universe is not expanding into anything because there is no outside infrastructure to occupy. Space and time are completely self-contained phenomena generated by the metric of the universe itself. When astronomers state that the universe is expanding, they mean that the fundamental metric tensor governing the distance between coordinates is stretching, quite literally creating more space where there was less space before, pushing distant galaxies further apart without moving them through an external room. There is no outer dimension waiting to be colonized, no edge and no fence separating reality from a deeper void. The universe is all there is, an enclosed, infinite geometric loop that bends back on itself, leaving our terrestrial brains completely locked within a system that possesses no exterior. The true cruelty of this isolation becomes painfully visible when we examine the ultimate speed limit of the cosmos, shattering the futuristic fantasies of myth number 33, the widespread, sci-fi-fueled doctrine that the speed of light is an incredibly fast, near-instantaneous velocity that will easily allow future human civilizations to effortlessly zip across galaxies in minutes. We watch our televised heroes engage warp drives, stars instantly blurring into lines as they arrive at a new alien solar system for lunch. Let us inject a cold dose of cosmic reality into this cinematic optimization. While light speed, traveling at roughly 186,000 miles per second, seems blindingly fast when bouncing across our tiny home planet, on an interstellar scale, it is agonizingly, frustratingly, and depressingly slow. The distances between stars are so unfathomably vast that light does not zip. It crawls through the void like a snail navigating an endless desert. If you were to launch a signal at the absolute speed of light toward our single nearest stellar neighbor, Alpha Centauri, the message would take over 4 long years just to arrive. To cross from one side of our own mediocre Milky Way galaxy to the other would require a grueling 100,000 years of travel at the absolute speed limit of physics. The universe is a collection of isolated islands, separated by such massive temporal chasms that traveling at light speed is functionally equivalent to standing perfectly still. A chilling reality that traps our civilization inside a localized bubble of deep space. This horizon limitation brings us straight to the optical frontiers of our greatest instruments, dragging into the light the target illusions of myth number 34, the proud institutional belief that advanced space observatories like the James Webb Space Telescope can actively peer through time to look directly at the actual physical edge of the universe and photograph the structural wall where space finally ends. We look at deep field images and imagine the telescope is a cosmic camera looking at a physical boundary line across the stars. Let us expose the hard physics of the cosmic horizon. When space telescopes look deep into the void, they are looking back in time solely because of the slow travel speed of light. As they peer deeper, they are not approaching a physical wall in space, they are approaching a chronological wall in time. At the furthest limit of our observation, telescopes hit an absolute opaque barrier of blinding energy known as the cosmic microwave background radiation. This is not the edge of space, it is the leftover thermal glow of a young, superheated universe that existed over 13 billion years ago, when the entire cosmos was a dense, glowing fog of hot plasma that completely blocks our view of anything older. The true physical universe stretches out vastly further beyond this optical horizon, completely hidden from our cameras, a cosmic curtain that ensures the true, infinite shape of the universe remains permanently veiled behind a wall of ancient, burning fog. The mechanical friction of surviving within this void is equally misrepresented by cinematic shorthand, leading us directly to the structural kinetic realities of myth number 35. The ubiquitous assumption that astronauts inside futuristic spaceships can simply utilize specialized magnetic boots to walk perfectly naturally and comfortably along the metallic floors of a craft just like they do on Earth. We see the cinematic scientist click their heels together, stride confidently down a corridor, and work at a console with total terrestrial ease. In the cold reality of physics and human anatomy, magnetic boots are a mechanical nightmare. A magnet can only pull the metal soles of your shoes down to the floor deck. It does absolutely nothing to alter the weightless reality of the rest of your physical mass. While your feet are securely locked to the metal plates, your upper torso, your internal organs, your heavy skull, and the fluid inside your inner ear remain in a state of absolute zero-gravity weightlessness. To move forward, you cannot walk naturally. You must forcefully hoist your floating legs and swinging upper body against the magnetic anchor, resulting in a violent, jerky, and pivoting motion that swings your internal organs around inside your chest cavity. This severe sensory mismatch between your locked feet and your floating vestibular system induces instantaneous, catastrophic motion sickness and disorientation, transforming a casual walk into a grueling fight against your own biology. Finally, we decode the fragile complacency of our own global civilization to destroy the peaceful illusions of myth number 36, the universal, deeply comforting belief that the Earth is a perfectly stable, safe, and isolated cosmic oasis that floats peacefully in a gentle, unchanging, and benign solar environment. We look out at the blue sky, assuming the space above our atmosphere is a quiet, static vacuum that poses no immediate danger to our modern lifestyle. Let us expose the volatile realities of space weather. Our planet is trapped in a permanent, high-stakes relationship with a volatile, active star. The sun is continuously erupting, blasting out massive, multi-ton clouds of highly magnetized plasma and high-energy radiation known as coronal mass ejections. These solar superstorms travel through space at millions of miles per hour, slamming directly into Earth's protective magnetic field. In the year 1859, a massive solar storm, known as the Carrington event, struck our planet, causing global telegraph wires to spontaneously burst into flames. If a solar superstorm of that exact same magnitude were to strike our modern, highly digitized civilization today, it would not merely cause a beautiful aurora, it would instantly melt the ultra-high voltage transformers of our global electrical grids, completely destroying the international power distribution network, plunging entire continents into absolute darkness and instantly collapsing our water systems, financial sectors, and communications infrastructure in a single day, proving that our comfortable modern world is merely a fragile electronic house of cards sitting in front of a volatile stellar cannon. We arrive at the terminal station of our celestial orbit for Part 7, the grand cosmic dissolution, the final crowning realization of an age that has traded the cozy, anthropocentric myths of antiquity for a cold, mathematical reality that refuses to flatter human vanity or accommodate our cinematic expectations. The true cosmos does not alter its foundational constants to provide a dramatic storyline for our amusement, nor does it maintain a protective, paternal watch over our fragile atomic arrangements. We enter this final gallery of misconceptions by dismantling the conspiratorial panics of myth number 37. The persistent, sensationalist doctrine that a massive rogue planet, often dubbed Nibiru, or a hidden, dark, binary companion star, is currently lurking undetected, directly behind the glare of the sun, secretly on track to collide with or devastate the Earth by next month. Self-styled prophets and internet sensationalists love to sketch diagrams of invisible celestial executioners slipping through our cosmic backyard while planetary authorities supposedly keep the populace in the dark. Let us expose this narrative using the absolute, unfakeable laws of celestial mechanics and gravitational perturbation. In a universe governed by general relativity, gravity is an unmaskable cosmic signature. You cannot hide a massive planetary body inside the inner solar system because its immense gravitational field would violently tug on everything around it long before it ever became visible to an optical telescope. Years before such a rogue world could approach our orbital path, its gravitational footprint would cause undeniable, mathematically catastrophic disruptions across our global satellite networks, violently warping the highly predictable orbits of Mars and Venus and sending the tracking instruments of every amateur astronomer on Earth into a state of absolute chaos. The universe cannot hide its heavy anchors. Our planetary neighborhood remains safely bound to its clockwork tracks, proving that the only thing approaching us next month is another routine turn of a lonely planet. This demand for structural verification brings us straight to the subatomic frontier to shatter the sci-fi optimizations of myth number 38, the widely celebrated doctrine that quantum entanglement functions as a magical loophole in physics, allowing for instantaneous, faster-than-light communication and data transfer across opposite sides of the universe, completely breaking Einstein's cosmic speed limit. We have all read the science fiction novels featuring instantaneous quantum radios that allow galactic empires to converse in real time across vast interstellar voids. Let us look at the actual restrictive parameters of quantum mechanics. When two subatomic particles become entangled, their quantum states are fundamentally linked. Measuring the spin or polarization of one particle instantly determines the corresponding state of its distant partner, even if they are separated by billions of light years. However, let us expose the fatal catch in this quantum exploit. This instantaneous correlation is completely random and contains absolutely zero usable data. The observer at the distant end cannot force their particle into a specific state to send you a message, because doing so instantly breaks the entanglement. To translate the random correlation into meaningful information, you must still send a classic sub-light communication signal via traditional radio waves or fiber optic cables to explain what the measurements mean. Quantum entanglement does not break the cosmic speed limit. It merely acts as a pair of identical, locked boxes distributed across the stars, proving that the universe strictly enforces its causal boundaries, rendering instantaneous interstellar communication an absolute physical impossibility. The scale of cosmic violence is similarly misunderstood by our localized perspective, leading us to correct the historic isolations of myth number 39. The comforting academic assumption that supernovas are incredibly rare, isolated historical anomalies that only occur once every few centuries across the vast canvas of the cosmos. We read about the famous stellar detonations recorded by ancient observers and assume that a star collapsing into a blinding thermonuclear explosion is an extraordinary cosmic event that requires a lifetime of patient scanning to witness. Let us expand our statistical horizon to match the actual density of the observable universe. While it is true that a massive star violently detonates within the boundaries of our immediate, localized Milky Way galaxy roughly once every 50 years, our galaxy is just one mediocre droplet in a staggering, unfathomable cosmic ocean. When you look through the lens of modern wide-field automated sky surveys that monitor the billions of other galaxies scattered across the deep void, the numbers transform into a relentless, terrifying rhythm of destruction. Across the observable universe, a massive dying star exhausts its nuclear fuel, suffers a catastrophic core collapse, and explodes into a blinding supernova every single second. As you sit here reading this sentence, several massive stars across the cosmos have just violently ripped themselves apart, casting their heavy atomic elements into the dark, transforming the universe into a continuous, unceasing graveyard of stellar cataclysms that unfolds at a speed that renders our human historical timelines completely insignificant. This historical complacency turns directly inward toward our own survival, dismantling the evolutionary hubris of myth number 40, the comforting protective belief that the gargantuan asteroid impact that wiped out the dinosaurs 66 million years ago was a unique, unpredictable planetary fluke, and that modern civilized humanity is completely safe from ever experiencing a similar extinction-level impact event. We treat the Chicxulub impactor as a prehistoric anomaly, assuming our modern technology has somehow exempted us from the brutal cycles of geological time. Let us look at the cold, unyielding ledges of impact craters scarring the surfaces of our neighboring worlds. Massive asteroid impacts are not random anomalies. They are routine, predictable cosmic cleaning cycles that operate on vast, million-year schedules. It is a mathematical question of when, not if, the next mountain of space rock crosses our coordinate point. Our atmospheric monitoring networks, while advanced, are currently aware of only a fraction of the smaller, yet thoroughly devastating city-killer asteroids that dance across our orbital path. Thousands of unmapped near-Earth objects drift silently through the dark, completely undetected by our ground-based radar systems. The Earth has been struck before, and it will be struck again. The cosmos does not recognize our cities, our flags, or our achievements, viewing our entire advanced civilization as nothing more than a temporary organic layer waiting to be cleared by the next routine ballistic reset. The simple mechanics of our yearly journey are equally distorted by our sensory intuition, bringing us to the geometric corrections of myth number 41. The persistent schoolhouse assumption that Earth's changing seasons are caused directly by the shifting physical distance of our planet from the Sun, making us warmer when our elliptical orbit flies closer to the stellar furnace and freezing us when we drift further away into the dark. It seems so completely rational to our terrestrial brains. You move closer to a fire, you feel more heat. Let us subject this thermal assumption to the actual geometry of our planetary orbit. The Earth's orbit around the Sun is nearly a perfect, pristine circle. The minor variation in our physical distance from the stellar core is so microscopically small as to be completely irrelevant to our global climate. The true, elegant mechanism driving our seasons is entirely dictated by our planet's permanent 23.5-degree axial tilt. As we glide along our yearly track, this slant causes the northern and southern hemispheres to alternately lean toward or away from the solar disk. When a hemisphere tilts toward the Sun, it does not experience warmth because it is closer. It experiences summer because the solar rays hit the ground at a sharp, direct vertical angle, concentrating the thermal energy into a dense space, while the opposite hemisphere receives the exact same light, slanted at a shallow, weak angle that spreads the heat thin, proving that our seasons are not a matter of cosmic proximity, but a masterpiece of slanted geometry. Finally, we decode the ultimate illusion of cosmic permanence by unmasking the freezing destiny of myth number 42, the grand, comforting cosmological consensus that the universe will continue to exist in its current, vibrant, star-forming state forever, providing an eternal, infinite playground for the expansion of future human interstellar empires. We imagine humanity traveling across a permanent canvas of glowing galaxies and burning suns until the end of time. Let us confront the chilling, unyielding finality of the Big Freeze, the ultimate heat death of our universe. The cosmos operates on a strict, irreversible thermodynamic budget. It is continuously bleeding usable energy, spending its initial capital of primordial hydrogen to forge stars that will inevitably grow old and burn out. The fabric of space itself is expanding at a hyper-accelerated rate, pushing galaxies further and further apart until they vanish beyond each other's horizons, isolated in absolute loneliness. Billions of years from now, the star-forming factories will completely exhaust their fuel supplies. The last stellar embers, the tiny red dwarfs, will slowly click off like dying flashlights in a dark room. The galaxies will cease to glow, dissolved into a permanent, freezing, and expansion-locked soup of iron-dead remnants, stray electrons, and decaying black holes, drifting through an absolute void where the temperature drops to absolute zero. All thermal differences are completely erased, and time itself loses any meaningful definition, wrapping up our grand space saga with the chilling realization that the universe does not care about our Hollywood tropes, our human comfort, or our corporate illusions, leaving us completely isolated on a fragile blue marble, riding a brief, beautiful flicker of light through a silent, expanding, and indifferent dark.